Twitter is dying and Mastodon is rising. Now, before I dive too far into the weeds, I do have to say I am one of the weird people that actually rather enjoy using Twitter. I am fortunate enough to be in one of those weird corners of Twitter, one of those weird communities that doesn't have too much negativity, cringe, or bad takes. Granted, no matter where you go on Twitter, there is going to be some of those. I think overall the tech and free and open source software community on Twitter is generally a really good place to be. And overall, at least on that platform, the community that we have been able to muster up and build is full of some wonderful people, and it honestly hurts me to see the direction that Twitter is going. With that, if you breathe and have been on the internet for more than 5 seconds in the last, let's say, 3 months or so, you probably know that Elon Musk has acquired or has been trying to acquire Twitter, and that specific deal went through about a week or two ago. Now, it's no strange thing for some egotistical billionaire to buy a platform in which gives them some sort of advantage or control over the overall opinion and free thought of people. Unfortunately for Elon, I think that this isn't the case. And I will have to note here, I'm not one of those Elon simps that are going to be immediately begging for his affection in the DMs, but at the same time, I'm not one of those people that automatically defaults to hate and disagreement on every single thing that he does. I think some of the things that he does and some of the companies are great. For example, SpaceX, drastically reducing the costs of flight to space, and overall, Starlink is an absolutely fantastic and revolutionary internet source, primarily for those in rural communities and those who don't have a good infrastructure to have high-speed internet. Granted, when it does come to Starlink, I have seen a few disappointing headlines or two, primarily doing with throttled speeds and the 1 terabyte data cap, which is actually common among most internet providers, but for what I do, a 1 terabyte data cap would be met rather rapidly on my end. Now, putting my Elon centricism aside, overall his entire purchase of the Twitter platform for himself was a horrible move, and honestly it's not looking too good for the platform. Now, you can argue that this is some 5D chess move in which I'm just a smooth-brained simpleton and I cannot understand the complex depths of his plans, but really the outside looking in, he's looking a little screwed here. Just in the debt that was acquired to actually purchase Twitter gives them about $1 billion a year interest payment. And this is on top of the ridiculous amount of money that Twitter has been losing on a year or even month-to-month basis anyways. There are many advertisers who are jumping on the bandwagon and pulling out. Granted, I don't think this is going to last very long, but even if there's absolutely no drop in advertiser revenue, this is still absolutely not going in a good direction. And then we have the whole buying a blue checkmark thing, which just don't do that. It's already worth making fun of people with check marks, let alone if you're somebody who has to pay for one of those. That is just absolutely silly. And then on top of that, it's going to be much easier for some garbage crypto bot to buy or pay the $8 a month it is for a check mark, change their name to Musk, and talk about some Twitter giveaway that you have to DM Elon Musk himself through Telegram. And even let's say if all 400,000 currently verified users actually went ahead and paid that $8 a month, that'd bring an additional revenue of about $3.2 million a year. Times that out by 12, we have about $38,400,000 of additional revenue a year, which in turn is going to barely even dent the interest payments on the debt that was accrued. He's recently laid off a whole bunch of people on the Twitter team, which will help with overall business costs, which according to the man himself is going to save the company about $400 million a year. That takes Twitter from about a yearly loss of $1.46 billion to much closer to $1 billion. And then from there I could get into the whole what is that actually going to look like with that many Twitter employees leaving, which granted, yes, big blue chip tech companies are generally bloated and probably have way more people than they need to, but getting rid of that much people, especially on things like the content moderation team, isn't really a good look for advertisers in general. Now, like I said earlier, I'm one of those weird folks that actually enjoys the environment that I was able to build around myself on Twitter, so I do hope there is some magic and he is able to succeed and actually make it a better platform, but at the moment I do not know. And fortunately for the free and open source community, there isn't a huge Twitter competitor at the moment. I mean, there's Facebook, but that's more of a place for your grandma to share her hippie memes, or for me personally, a slightly better version of Craigslist. To my personal surprise, Mastodon actually seems to be the current savior for the people who are looking to leave the platform for something better. Just Googling Mastodon under the news section brings us stories from BBC, Wired, TechCrunch, USA Today, and a whole bunch more. Meaning that overall Mastodon, even though it is slightly a little more complicated when it comes to the overall layout than Twitter, seems to be what people are preferring to switch to. Now, if you don't know, Mastodon isn't just like one site that you go to. Mastodon is a platform and network of websites that all actually communicate with each other. So what you kind of do is join a site that kind of fits along your interest and has already kind of formulated a community that you're interested in. For example, the one I joined was Mastodon because I just have a general preference and leaning towards open source software and the whole community that it attracts. But ultimately, there is a whole host of independently ran websites and instances that you could go ahead and join, including some just general ones such as Mastodon.social, which is kind of like more of a general Twitter version, except for, like I said, a lot of these can't communicate with each other, so you can see the overall timeline from your specific instance or the global timeline of all the sites that are actually connected to each other. And that makes the whole platform really nice because it's just decentralized, and this gives you greater control of what you actually see, interact with, and it gives instances control over specific moderation. And of course, if you don't want to be a part of some other instance, you could just go ahead and create your own. And then instead of just having a username of like @TechHut on Twitter, for example, you'll have @TechHut at Mastodon. And then of course you could actually communicate and actually follow and have people follow you from outside of your specific instance that you decided to join. And because of everything that I've talked about in this video thus far, there has been a massive spike in users. And without even looking at the numbers, I could tell this just because of on my account on Mastodon, I have had a huge surplus of followers, interactions, to the point where my notifications on Mastodon versus Twitter are getting really close to a 1-to-1 ratio. And one of my initial concerns with Mastodon is it was going to be just an echo chamber of a bunch of free and open source nerds who don't like big tech, which at least initially when I joined that was kind of true, but with the overall surplus of new users, this has just become further and further from the case. And even if Twitter does die, which I really hope that it is able to come around and succeed, at least out of any platform that could have went ahead and taken over, Mastodon is the one that really seems to be picking up some major speed, and that to me is awesome. Because whether if you hate big tech or not, one thing that we can all agree with is that a platform that is supposed to be the overall town square to be completely decentralized is a good thing. With that, go ahead and follow me over on Mastodon. I'm going to be leaving a link down below if you are interested, and if you don't want to jump on over, of course, there'll be a link to my Twitter account below. And speaking of open source, you might as well go ahead and check out the sponsor of today's video, Internext, which is an encrypted open source cloud storage provider that has many of the features you'd expect, including a wonderful web dashboard, applications for both iPhone and Android, including photo backup, and much more. Better yet, if you go ahead and use the link down below, you could go ahead and get 10 gigabytes for free, or use the coupon code if you want more storage to go ahead and save a good chunk of change. With all that, I do hope you have an absolutely beautiful day, and goodbye.